Once we graduated and took up a regular job, we were definitely not very excited. We were missing that connection of building things and converting physics to products. And that was when we said that we can't do this.
Yeah.
We have to build products. We believe that we can build a very strong technology moat. But if you want radical innovation happening, that can only happen when everything is controlled under one roof. You can see Tesla, you can see BYD, you can see Apple.
Hello everyone, I am Varun Aggarwal, co-founder of Fast India. At Fast, we strongly believe that R&D is key for sustained economic development. We love to celebrate individuals who have put research at the center of their business and demonstrated that economic value can be created by sustained R&D investments. Today, I have one such individual with me who built a company from campus and scaled it to become one of the top 3 electric scooter companies in the country. Yes, I have Swapnil with me and I'm looking forward to this exciting conversation with you, Swapnil. Let me start with asking you, how many scooters are you shipping now every month? And what is an electric smart scooter?
Thanks, Varun, for having me here. As of today, we are averaging about 20,000 vehicles per month. As far as smart electric scooter goes, I think smart is just that's the adjective which we use nowadays. But it's essentially our thought process was how do you take a scooter and make it more user friendly. That is the whole idea, because in the past all the scooters which have been there, they were very utility focused. You just go from point A to point B. But how the entire urban system has evolved, two-wheelers have become a very important part of your daily life. And you have to start looking at it beyond pure utility, and that's where the whole evolution of Ather happened. That's how we envisioned our first product itself. It was not smart as a buzzword, but as actually solving real world problems for customers. Things like navigation. Like you have all the cars have navigation, but until we introduced the touchscreens on dashboard on the vehicle and full-fledged Google Maps, no two-wheeler had a rich navigation system in them. And two-wheelers probably requires navigation a lot more than a four-wheeler does. So that was the inception of 450 and the word smart electric scooter. Beyond that, we've built a lot of features. Every year we keep launching more and more software features, which just makes people's life better and better on a two-wheeler.
Great. And any particular feature which got you a lot of customer love, or something which you personally become excited about कि शायद ऐसा सोचा नहीं था पर लोगों को बहुत useful लगा?
Navigation is by far the single most used feature in the vehicle. It's very practical in an urban setup especially. But along with that, something as simple as live location sharing, where if you believe that you're traveling in the night and you want somebody to just be knowing where you are when your vehicle is, or for that matter even during the day, if you just want somebody to just know how you're tracking to your destination, you could just like a click of a button on the vehicle without even taking your hands off the handlebar. You could share a location with the loved ones, and they would be able to track your location. So from there to some of the more safety features like theft or tow detection, or even a fall detection. The most important one nowadays, which we launched, is a skid control. All of these are becoming a very integral part of people's life, and some of them are actually just working in the background. Customers don't even know that this is running in the background and making their life better and the travel safer.
Great. I think there will be a time when these will become default features for electric scooters, right? Like everyone will expect it. But let me now dial back and go to the time when you started Ather, right? And you started it while you were at campus at IIT Madras more than 10 years back. So tell my audience a little bit, why did you decide to start Ather? What was the motivation? The whole electric vehicle stack was at its nascency in India at that point of time. So how did you decide to take up this bold experiment?
2007 to 2012, when we were in college, we spent a lot of our college days building products by ourselves. So application of classroom engineering and converting that into a physical product is something really excited us. Building something which converts a physics principle into a daily usage is something which is very interesting, and nothing can get you more excited than this, and that seeing physics in action. We are used to doing that with that kind of life of the 5 years of our campus, and then once we graduated and went into took up a regular job, we were definitely not very excited because we were missing that connection of building things and converting physics to products. And that was when we said that hey, we can't do this.
Yeah.
We have to build products. So that was one piece. But that's just a small piece. The bigger piece was that both of us were very excited about the energy industry itself. Energy industry continues, and it was evolving in 2013, and it's right now in a very sharp transition from a fossil fuel based like a industry to a clean energy based industry. And when we were very excited about that transition and the entire energy industry itself, because it's one such industry which has a very large impact on the entire humanity.
Yeah.
Everything you pay for is essentially energy, and if you really want to make an impact on humanity, you have to actually figure out how do you make energy more and more accessible to a larger set of people. The lesser the more the access to energy, the cheaper everything would be, and the better everybody's lifestyle would be. So it's a very strong correlation between access to energy to the lifestyle of individuals. So we were very excited about that. We were also very excited about, in general, consumer products, and hence all of this put together, automobile, which is a very heavy consumer based product, clean energy, which is EV, and one realization that in India in particular, nobody is building the technology for EVs. And unlike ICE, EVs means that you have to build a technology grounds up. You cannot, there's nothing which is existing, because two-wheeler is a very India phenomena. It is not a global phenomena. So it is, nobody else has enough motivation to build electric two-wheeler tech. Yes, many people will build a electric four-wheeler tech, but nobody will actually build an electric two-wheeler tech, because there's not enough use case outside of India. And that's when we said that nobody is doing it in the country, nobody is doing it outside the country. We believe that we can build a very strong technology moat, and in general, energy industry is something which excited us, and that was the genesis of Ather.
Very cool. So you found a niche which you thought others in technology are not really working on, and which was extremely important.
More than niche, a white space.
A white space.
Yeah, we were very clear that we don't want to build niche products.
Right.
We want to build mass market products, but the white space was that EVs, and in particularly built with the backing of technology, was not existing.
Got it. So how did you convince your first investors to invest in something like this, right? Because this is not the kind of thing which usually happens in India, and the investors are generally more used to investing in internet companies.
It was a very tough time. While it was very tough, we were still very lucky to have come across certain individuals who just believe in the EV transition, and who believe that we could build the technology, and technology will be a moat. It was really difficult, I think, for every individual who showed interest. There were 100 who said no, and even if, I think, out of those individuals who showed interest, I think out of probably 51 would actually say yes. So it was a very small set of people who were really interested in it. And but the first it was our professor, then one of our alumnus, and then Sachin and Bini. So it was more about individuals who believed in a certain story than anybody who was really focused on making money. People who were willing to take really large bets were the ones who really got excited. That's been a story. It was never easy, even until the IPO. It was never easy for us to raise funds.
That speaks generally to the funding ecosystem for such hardware startups, right? Swapnil, you were earlier saying, right, that no one was working on this technology because it's a unique problem. So in your initial days, what were the hard technology problems you guys had to solve if you would look at the first 3 to 5 years, where you think you put the most effort? You know, it probably also gave you some of your aha moments saying that, look, अरे ये हो गया, ये कर दिया. So any examples and thoughts on that?
Yeah, we obviously started with the battery first, because that was the starting point when we realized that commercially available batteries are way too expensive than what the first principle analysis told us. There was we thought that the first principle analysis tells us the batteries, and back in 2013, should cost around $300 per kilowatt hour, and what we were finding was about $1,000 per kilowatt hour. So that was a very clear realization that you could build batteries much cheaper if you do it yourself.
Yeah.
Plus, you could actually build batteries which are very specific to Indian two-wheeler application. Most of the batteries we could find commercially available were general purpose batteries. Were not meant for Indian electric two-wheeler application. Indian climatic conditions are different, two-wheeler use cases are different, and two-wheeler architecture is different. So you had to purpose build a battery, but which was not something which was happening. People were trying to build a defense battery and trying to sell that to two-wheeler. Obviously, it's going to be expensive. There was no scale as well. So that was our starting point. But over a period of time, what we realized is that the entire EV tech stack is something which has to be controlled by the OEM. Because unlike what happens in ICE, where you could buy subsystems from multiple places, you buy an engine from somebody else, you buy a ECU from somebody else, you buy a fuel pump from somebody else, and then put them together. That is not going to work for EVs, because the EV architecture itself is very nascent, and tier ones are effective when the industry and the architecture are stabilized, and now you want incremental innovation happening at every place. But if you want radical innovation happening, that can only happen when everything is controlled under one roof. You can see Tesla, you can see BYD, you can see Apple. So whenever there has been a large innovation, the entire technology stack has been controlled by the OEM themselves, because you have to look at it as a system. You can't look at it as pieces, just individual pieces. You will always create an inefficient piece. If you look at a whole system as a whole, then is when you start creating more optimization. So in this process, what we realized is the fundamental thing we had to build is not battery or motor controller. We had to build an R&D engine. We had to build an organization which is very good at doing R&D. May it be motor controller, may it be software, may it be hardware, chassis, battery, doesn't matter. And R&D DNA is what we had to create, and that was the focus point for us, especially for me, over the past 7-8 years.
Got it. No, this is very interesting, Swapnil. But the way you describe it, right, that you have to do the whole thing, right, all the pieces, and of course how they bring together, that means that it is technologically complex and you need expertise in multiple domains. So how did you go about assembling a team for this? And did you find talent in India and capability in India for the kind of things which had to be done to build this technology, or did you train people in-house? How did you really go about building the knowledge base to do this?
It was a very, very interesting journey. So we tried multiple things. So obviously when we got started, we started hiring very first principle thinking individuals who did not really know much about EVs, but understood the first principles and the physics behind things really, really well. Obviously, they were young individuals, 1 or 2 years experience, interns, all of that is what we started with. Formula SAE students is what we started with, obviously because of lack of funds as well. And then over a period of time, we started hiring individuals from the industry. But what we realized is that beyond the point, first principle thinking is better than pure industry experience. And back in 2013, anyway, almost nobody really had any experience of building EVs. Also, India back then, even to some extent today, has not done many grounds of product development. Most of the product development actually is not product development, it's value engineering.
Yeah.
Right? You take a product developed for a Western country or even an Eastern country, and then sort of do just modification to make it India ready. But nobody has actually built a platform grounds up, and that's a very different ball game than just modifying something which already exists.
Right.
And finding those people was incredibly difficult and to the extent not possible. Whatever people we found from the industry, what we realized is that they were very good in industry practices. They would know process like ECR, ECN, drawing release,
Yeah.
all of that, but they didn't know physics. And you can't really design a product without knowing physics. Yes, you have to know all the other engineering practices as well. Need to know ECR, ECN, part number, all of that. But if you don't know physics, everything else is
Yeah.
used as everything else is secondary. First, you have to know the fundamentals of engineering. After a point, we decided that we are just going to focus on hiring first principle engineers, people who are very strong in their understanding of and their engineering basics, and let them do mistakes. It's okay.
Yeah.
Because smart people, they even if they do mistake once, next they would at least realize that they've done a mistake, and next time they won't do it. If you have only industry experience and don't have the right smartness and first principle understanding, they'll never be able to improve.
Yeah.
They would be at a level and they will never improve. So we prioritize smartness and first principle thinking over industry experience, and that played out really well to the extent that we have started to now come up with our own set of practices,
Yeah.
which are better than the industry now.
No, that's very interesting. And it's also interesting that you mentioned about getting this talent from the formula teams at campuses, right? And how these competitions kind of build capacity.
It's very helpful, because otherwise most people lose interest in engineering because it's all classroom.
Yeah.
Right? It seems boring if you're only in classroom, but something like the formula students really sort of lets you like feel engineering.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the interest gets ignited, and you learn a lot of practical aspects.
No, and that's a very interesting insight, right? Because then these things like grand challenges become a policy instrument to really create these ecosystems and talent capacity. I had one more, question, or in fact two. So having done some work in hardware myself, right? So I've seen that there are generally two kinds of individuals you need. One who's very good at physics, math, and so on, can run simulations, etc. But then you also need the hacker kinds, right? Who can put things together, make them work, right? And like I was in a robotics lab at MIT, and there was like some people who were really good at the math and so on, but then there were some people who just knew how to build robots, right? And there's a lot of tacit understanding which goes there. Was that something in your experience as well? And I also asked this question because sometimes the latter kind of talent doesn't get a pathway in India, right? So if you're a great builder and so on, and if you don't know your physics and math, you may not still land in an IIT, right? Because the exams are geared to that. So for you, did you think that the second kind of talent was also needed and it was a symphony of both?
No, I think you need a healthy balance of both, but healthy balance of both in the same individual.
I see.
Interesting. That's very important, because a hacker without first principles may get something going, but may not last and may not be able to actually create an impact. At the same time, somebody who's only first principles and is not able to convert knowledge into products is also of no use, right? So it's not like we hire only from IITs, and it's not like we only hire hackers. If you are not good at first principles, we would probably not still value you. If you are very good in your engineering principles but are not hands-on, would still not hire you. Good balance is what is more important than one thing in particular. Yes, there are certain roles where I would hire a PhD, where because they really need to go into deep depth of a certain physics aspects. But otherwise, and I don't see why somebody in an IIT cannot be hands-on. They should be hands-on, and that's when the real. And I think I definitely feel that all the education institutes have to encourage building things with your bare hands. If we really want to retain talent within engineering, you have to get them excited about engineering, and that can only happen when you actually do things,
Do things.
with your own hands. We really got a lot of opportunity to build things with our own hand, and that just retained our excitement in engineering. Otherwise, we would have just
Yeah.
gone away and gone to banks or consulting.
Yeah. What are you more of, Swapnil? Thinker or doer?
I like balance of both.
Balance of
Yeah.
both. Okay. One more question on, when you have to put, let's say, a whole scooter together, right? So, there's two things which you are doing, right? One, you are trying to build better and better subparts. And the second is that you have to assemble all of it together and build this full instrument here. How would you generally do it? Would you do rough parts, assemble them together, and then have a bench, or just first focus on individual parts, make them very good, and then think about assembly? How does this thing happen practically for you guys? Was it that you had a bench from day one where you said that, look, we need all to put all the parts together, let's have rough things, let's buy some things?
If I talk about in the past, it was very haphazard because we didn't have enough resources to actually do what we intended to do. So, but one thing which has remained constant is that we believe in quick iterations.
Yeah.
Because there's only so many things you know, and after beyond a point, you have to just build and test something to really understand the systems more. You can never be an all-knowing person, especially if you are younger. You have not seen a lot of product development, then you will make mistakes and you will have to test them out. So we believe in rapid prototyping, rapid testing, identifying issues and then solving them on the bench level. So creating like a hardware in loop system, software in loop system to quickly test on a component level. At the same time, while the component testing is happening, also build a vehicle and test it on a vehicle level. So we do like 3 levels of validation. One is like a bench tabletop hardware in loop sort of a simulation. Then you do like a system level simulation, like all the electrical systems put together, mechanical system put together. And third is vehicle validation. So all of this is done in parallel to identify issues at the same time and solve them in a rapid manner.
Okay, no, very interesting. This is very, very exciting, Swapnil. So I'd like to go to one thing which we briefly discussed before, right? Challenges for hardware startups in India, right? Funding is one. And you spoke about how there are some believers who fund. Any other challenges which you think which stymie the progress of hardware startups in India? I think another one which you mentioned tacitly is whether your engineering education is preparing you for doing things with your hand rather than just having these books and tests. Anything else which comes to your mind?
Actually, I think that's the most important thing. Why is it that internet startups grow so rapidly? Because you can sit in your hostel room and code, right? You can build products sitting in your hostel room. You can convert, even if you're not the best computer science engineer, you have all the ability to create an application. There is enough open source and enough infrastructure which is freely available for you to build an application. I think that's where hardware industry struggles the most. Infrastructure is the key. Infrastructure which lets you tinker, not infrastructure as in like labs which are completely under control of the educational institutes where you have to take permissions to do anything. We need to create an environment where for hardware startups also can tinker, can see their and at very low cost. So similarly, things like incubation cells. I am of a strong belief that this sector agnostic incubation cells are of not much use. Incubation cells should always be focused on a particular sector, on a particular problem statement, and especially if you want to solve hardware problems, you have to create an infrastructure, a hardware infrastructure, because that's the most expensive and time-consuming thing for hardware startup. If you want to lower the entry barrier for hardware startups in the country, you have to build infrastructure which people can easily use and build their products with. Otherwise, we'll always be in the situation that the gestation period of a hardware startup will be too long. We have to work as an industry to bring down the gestation period of hardware startups. Also bring in a lot of open source. The very good thing about software industry is that there's so much of open source.
Yeah.
And that again lowers the barrier for entry. But hardware, everything is tightly controlled. Everything is proprietary. Everything you have to pay through your nose, pay for the IP, pay for the import duty and whatnot. So lowering the barrier by creating more and more open source like a Raspberry Pi and Arduino, we have been trying our own efforts on those fronts as well to make like we recently open sourced a CAN analyzer. It's a very simple tool, but it used to cost a lot of money to import it. It was a very simple, honestly, a very simple device.
What's a CAN analyzer?
A CAN is a protocol, is a communication protocol which mostly automotives use, but it can be used in any domain, even automation and all of that. Primarily meant for automotive. So if you want to read what information is flowing on a CAN bus, so you need a CAN analyzer which will convert a signal into a more an electrical signal into a more machine readable or a human readable form. And that's what it's a very simple thing. Costs a lot of money, also a lot of import duty, time to import it from Germany or wherever you're importing it from. You can just open source it and make it in India. So I think we need a lot of these open source initiatives in hardware to come in.
Great. I asked you what is CAN. I thought it's Coca-Cola CAN. But no, on jokes apart, I think what you're saying is that we need both hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure for hardware startups, right? Which is one, tinkering labs, and then open source software and hardware, which is great. From here, we'll jump to the next segment. So Swapnil, one of the challenges which hardware startups face is that the local supply chain doesn't exist, right? So the components they have to put together not existent in the local supply chain. What I understand now for Ather, as on today, you do 99% of your components come from within India, right? Was this always like this, or was it different in the beginning? And if it was different, how did you build this supply chain in India? And what do you recommend to other hardware startups which are working in other areas and they don't find the supplier ecosystem out here in India?
This is true for any new industry that you may not necessarily have the supply chain ready. When we started Ather, while the standard automotive supply chain existed, like brakes, suspension, tires, those existed, but something like a motor controller, battery casing, throttle, a wiring harness of this complexity, these were not the things which were existing in the country, and we had to build the supply chain working with the tier ones, and that's something which all of us will have to commit. This is essentially goes back to what I was saying about the manufacturing engineering.
Yeah.
That being weak in the country has sort of challenges, but I think with a lot of new startups coming in, manufacturing engineering will also get strengthened. Every industry which comes up, they have to spend some effort on actually establishing the supply chain, establishing the manufacturing processes as well. Also, that while the 99% of the tier ones is definitely localized, the tier 2 is where we start having challenges, which is your magnets and semiconductors and cells, all of that. And these are the areas which not just Ather but every new emerging industry will suffer, because as soon as you scratch the surface, the second layer of supply chain becomes a challenge, because globally that's what is happening.
Yeah.
The more and more technology rich supply chain is still being controlled very, very closely by countries. The lesser technology intensive is being outsourced and being localized everywhere. So we have to build the supply chain for the tier 2, tier 3 level as well.
Great. So Swapnil, we talked a lot about your journey and if I may about the past, right? How you came here. Now let's talk a little bit about the future and also you now as a thought leader, right? Because you've done this experiment and shown that this can happen. So the first thing I would want to ask you is that one persistent question in the Indian ecosystem is that industry spends very little on R&D, right? The statistics says 0.2% of GDP, which is way lower than the West or China or Korea. You guys have been very, very different, where you spend 15% of your revenue on R&D. And what I gathered from the discussion till now is that part of it was necessity, right? Because you were building this thing. Now, how do you see this going forward, right? Do you think that you will continue to invest in R&D? What kind of shareholder feedback do you get? And how do you justify the investments you continue to make in R&D?
Ather's DNA is is R&D. Ather's moat itself is R&D. So there is no reason why would we not spend on R&D. The percentage might come down as our revenue goes up. That's a different thing. But on an absolute basis, there is no need for us to spend lesser on R&D, because we are again in a sunrise sector where R&D is the key. And actually, I think in today's world, it doesn't matter whether it is sunrise or not. You have to invest in R&D. We have seen time and again whereby what is happening by Indian industries not investing in R&D. We are either not having the best technology, which essentially means that we either don't have the right cost, we are not able to provide the right things at the right cost, or not the right kind of a performance. So you cannot run away from investing in R&D. I think we probably for the longest of the time we have been a country of traders. And that's why we are comfortable with it. From the investors to boardroom conversations to everybody, I think the R&D seems like a unnecessary overhead. It is already starting to change. The fact that you and I are talking about it, the fact that everywhere else the statistics of how much some of the giants of the country are spending on R&D is coming up again and again. So it is inevitable that the country has to start increasing the private sector itself. Forget about the country. I think we a lot of times feel that R&D is something which it's only the government's job. And the private sector should only make money. I don't think that is true. I think private sector is the one which the closest to the customer, and they should really, yes, even the money which has to be spent by government on R&D should ideally be dictated by the private sector. Which, if there are certain investments which I think the private sector is too difficult for a private sector to do, then those can be done by the public money. But otherwise, it is inevitable if you want to stay competitive in the global environment. Otherwise, all our cost cutting endeavors and all of that will be of no use if we are not staying relevant in the world today. We have to have the technology. If EVs have to be there, we have to invest in batteries, power electronics, cell, magnets, all of this. We are seeing how at some point of time steel industry was also struggling because we didn't have the best technology. If you don't have the best technology, your cost structures will start suffering in the end. So all the money which you saved on not spending in R&D, you are going to pay at some point of time and also lose the market. I think it's very, very inevitable that everybody has to increase their spends in R&D, start seeing it as a means of creating the future and not as an overhead.
So you have to do this long-term thinking, right? And this reminds me of this quote which comes in Alice in Wonderland, right? Where one of the queens says that she has to keep running to stay at the same place, right? And probably R&D can be seen in that way, right? That if you have to maintain your competitive advantage, your cost structures, and so on, you need to continue to invest in R&D. On this, Swapnil, what is your vision ahead now for Ather as far as you look at the technology stack, innovation, and so on? And what do you think should be also the vision for India when they think about what they need to do in EV, right? So the new Anusandhan National Research Foundation from the Government of India has launched an EV mission. There's this new fund of 1 lakh crore for industry R&D where again EV will be a theme. Where do you think we need to seek to go, and where does Ather seek to go?
So obviously, technology sovereignty is the most critical piece. We have seen it play out multiple times in the last 3-4 years. When COVID hit, India was the one who struggled the most with semiconductors. With all these tariff challenges, India is the one who's getting a setback on magnets. So for a country, for a GDP of our size, us being so much reliant on some of the critical technology on somebody else is not going to work. Investing in cell technologies, investing in magnets, and investing in power electronics, semiconductors, these are going to be very, very, very critical. And not just make in India, but design in India as well, I think is going to be very, very, very critical. Because we have also seen that sometimes even like Make in India initiatives are getting impacted because the somebody decide that they will not sell a machine. Today, we are not just it has actually come down to not the putting up the factory, but the machines which you put up in the factory. That's become a very critical piece. You may have the capability to put up a cell manufacturing plant, but what if somebody decides you to not sell you the machines which make the cells?
Interesting.
Right? That is becoming the bottleneck today. We are from a manufacturing engineering perspective, we are far behind. Like at least design, we have made some progress, but from manufacturing engineering, we are way far behind. And everything, may it be cells, may it be magnets, may it be semiconductors, all of them is boiling down to the manufacturing engineering. It is no more. We have the capability to design chips, but we don't have any capability to design the machine which makes the chips.
Interesting.
We have the capability to make cells, but we have no capability to make the machine which makes the cells. So a lot of focus has to go towards manufacturing engineering, and especially for EVs in the aspects of cell, cathode active material, anode, your electrolytes, then magnets, and semiconductors. Again, I would like to emphasize not only design, but manufacturing engineering as well.
Understood. I have a question on this, Swapnil. So, as you say, right, we are quite far back on manufacturing engineering. And this links to my next question as well. One worry I have is that if we invest in this, will we always be playing catch up? Or is there a way to leapfrog? Right. And that's a related question is that, of course, we compare ourselves with the West, with China, right? And if you see BYD, it has a huge R&D team, right? So, as we are making progress ahead, others are continuing to make progress even ahead. So what do you think should be our strategy? Can we leapfrog, or we are in this ultimate catch-up game?
No, I think with every industry, it is possible to leapfrog, because what ends up happening is that beyond the point, there is a fair amount of capital which gets locked in one particular technology, and then people find it difficult to move out of that technology, and that gives an opportunity for a newcomer to leapfrog by going orthogonal, right? Like it's not very different than saying that when automobile giants were invested in ICE technology, the only way to catch up with them in automobile was to again go orthogonal and move to EVs. Right? It's a very similar thing. When Japan and Korea had a very strong hold on NMC chemistry, China decided to go to LFP chemistry. Again, create a orthogonal path for themselves. So what is a strength is also a weakness for most of those countries. They are heavily locked in on certain technologies, and we can always try to find a certain technology which works for us. What we did with thorium, in a very similar way, creating our own technology, which is orthogonal to what others have.
Got it. So we have to find some bets where we can win and create an alternate pathway, is what you are saying. Very interesting. So Swapnil, again, when we are talking about these alternate pathways, new technologies and so on, right? There's some research which is more nascent, happens in academic institutions. There's some research which happens in industry, which is as technology gets more mature and so on, right? And the learning from the world, from countries who have been successful in doing this, is a very tight integration of academia and industry, right? And it's very interesting, right? The history of this goes to German universities who did it first, even before US did it, to create this tight coupling between universities and the industry ecosystem. And US learned from it and so on. Whereas when we talk about India, we see a lot of challenges in these two players coming together. What has been your experience? How do you see this? And what do you think we can do to fix this?
It's an incentive mismatch, honestly, according to me. The industry is only incentivized to make money, and the academia is only incentivized to publish papers. How do you make honestly, whenever we even visit professors, many a times we don't see them having any need to work with industry itself. And that becomes a big problem, because then they don't do things at a pace which the industry would want. And actually, a couple of times it happened that we started to work with an academia and academic institute, and then we actually realized they're moving so slow.
Yeah.
Then we just said we'll just hire our own team and do it.
Right.
They may have the knowledge and the resources, but if they don't have the will
Yeah.
and the incentives to do it, outcome rarely comes in. And all the money they need, they get it from grants and
Yep.
and all those other mechanisms. But none of these grants and mechanisms have any end outcome and industry outcome attached
To it.
And even most of the industry academia sort of proposals which come in, even there it is, I've seen it mostly dictated by the academia.
I see.
It's them saying that I want to do this, I just want your name,
Yeah.
please put your name, and we'll get the money. And then once the money is come in, they go their own way. I don't want to comment too much on the on these things because I don't know everything which happens in the background. Like one of the reasons why it works for, let's say, especially the US institutes and all, is that, well, a large part of their funding actually comes from the industry. So
from the industry.
Yeah, they have no other option than to work with industry. Obviously, it has its own disadvantages as well, that then you are only doing what the industry is asking you to do. But at least today I think we are not in, maybe you need a mixture of both. You need some institutes which just works purely based on their own defined objectives. But there has to be another 80% of the institutes whose incentives have to be strongly aligned with industry, and they have to probably bring in industry funding to actually meet their probably daily needs itself.
Sure. So the point you're making is about having the incentives aligned for both industry and academia to work together, which is not here right now, which is a great point, right? The other piece which happens, so generally if you think of it from an economic theory point of view, you need two things. One, you need the incentives, right incentives to be there, but then you also need frictionless processes, right? And that is something again which our R&D ecosystem suffers from. We have FAST has done a ease of doing science report which shows that scientists face great challenge both in commercializing what they've done, that is like comes as number one, in spending the money. Also, the Prime Minister has spoken about this, about ease of doing science in the ANRF Executive Council meeting. Have you seen these issues in your work with delays, issues with government rules, etc., in spending and so on? Any experiences and any recommendations out there?
No, I mean, the ease of doing science is definitely a very important piece, and we have seen this as an academic when we were in college and otherwise as well, that unfortunately we are a very heavily regulated country. Everything is very tightly regulated. For doing the smallest of the things, you have to jump through a lot of hoops. So we are very, very cautious, which is good in a way, but then it people who really want to do good work, they are the ones who get really frustrated and penalized, and end of the day they just decide not to do anything. So making it easier for people to spend money is important, because see, anybody who wants to do any funny business, they find loopholes anyway and do it. So but in the process, you are sort of demotivating people who really want to do things the right way and who are really committed to the cause. So yeah, I mean, reducing all the regulatory aspects, ease of doing science is a very, very critical piece to sort of promote innovation in on the academic level.
Great, superb. I'll ask you my last question, Swapnil. So we've discussed about policy, we have discussed about your early years, we've talked about the future of EVs in India. Given that you are an inspirational figure for a lot of new entrepreneurs, and a lot of these hardware entrepreneurs actually have various kinds of struggles, which I am sure you faced in your early days. What would be your advice to them?
You have to stay focused. It's very easy to keep pivoting into different things and keep losing your focus. It is better to be focused and not achieve anything than not be focused and just like this like sort of toil around for a while without actually achieving anything. I think that's the most critical piece. Building the right team is also another very critical piece. If you don't have the right team, if you don't build team with the first principles understanding, even in the short term you win, long term will be a struggle for them. The only other thing which I would, based on the recent what's happening, I would tell individuals is that be well informed about the government incentives and policies which are there. I also, in general, we are very as a country, we are very distrustful of the government, that nothing really happens there. But I think a lot of great things are happening, and I think people need to keep themselves informed of what is happening. I realized recently that R&D recognition which DSIR provides, a lot of the other startups didn't know that exists.
Yeah.
And they were complaining about how custom duties are, there is a lot of custom duty for import for R&D. So I think there is a fair amount of lack of knowledge about these policies. So on one side, I think the government also has to work on creating more and more awareness around these things. At the same time, entrepreneurs also have to keep their eyes and ears open about what is happening with ANRF and all the other incentive schemes which are coming along.
Yeah. No, that's great suggestion, Swapnil. And three which I heard from you: one, focus; second, great teams; and third, keep abreast with what's happening in the nation, because there's a lot of push from the government now to build India's R&D ecosystem and support deep tech startups. Right. Thank you so much, Swapnil, for spending time today with us. And I think we covered quite a lot of different things, from your journey to seeing how R&D is so critical to build, path-breaking companies in India, and the importance of keeping focus, building team capacity, and continue to iterate, which you mentioned, and how R&D is important for companies to create sustained economic value. If they don't continue to invest in R&D, slowly they will fall off the path. Interestingly, we also discussed that to leapfrog in technology areas, we need to find alternate paths, right? So there's this innovator's dilemma, right, where the players which are already established in one technology stack have a problem coming out of it. And that is something India should leverage and find areas where they have a right to win, so that they're not only chasing technologies which have been built by the West or China, but we have our own independent streak of, in fact, giving a direction to technologies of the future. So thanks again, Swapnil. Thanks for joining us. I think this will be very useful for entrepreneurs, for policymakers, and also industry leaders on how to think about R&D. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks, Varun, for having me.
Thank you.